When we hear about deep spiritual transformation, we usually hear about what it gives us. People talk about finding peace, gaining wisdom, and discovering love. And that is all true. But today I want to talk about the part of the journey that is rarely spoken about openly, and is not very glamorous at all. I want to talk about what transformation quietly takes away. People often say that spiritual growth changes your relationships. In my experience, it did far more than that. It changed my relationship with my entire previous life. There came a point where I realized I no longer felt connected to the person I used to be. And because that old self began to dissolve, I lost my connection to the relationships, the roles, and the ways of living that belonged to that person. I had changed so deeply that I could no longer experience my own reality in the same way. And that was both profoundly confusing and deeply painful. For a long time, I did not understand what was happening to me. I only knew that something fundamental had shifted inside of me. I wondered why I no longer wanted the things I used to want, why conversations that once interested me suddenly felt empty, and why I felt like a total stranger in places that once been so familiar. It wasn't that the outer world had changed. It was me that had changed. We often imagine transformation as an addition, adding layers of peace or maturity to who we are, and they do. But true transformation is just as much about subtraction. It is a slow process of shedding. Little by little, you stop being the person who needed constant approval, the person who lived according to other people's expectations, trying to prove their worth and believing they had to earn love. You're no longer this person. But when that fear-based identity begins to dissolve, the life built around it begins to collapse too. That is what happens. For me, this wasn't simply about losing a few friendships. It felt as though my entire past belonged to someone else. Even my memories began to feel different. It was almost as if I could remember that life, but I could no longer experience it or connect to it as me. This is an incredibly difficult thing to explain unless you have lived through it. There is a strange silent period in a deep transformation where you're no longer the person you used to be, but you haven't yet fully settled into who you are becoming. It feels like standing between two worlds. The old life no longer fits, but the new one hasn't fully appeared yet. From the outside, onlookers, those who look inside, don't understand the space you're in. They might look at you and see loneliness or a strange kind of withdrawal. They might think you're pulling away out of sadness or coldness, or you're not interested anymore. But from the inside, there's a deep sadness that comes with this space. It is the heavy sorrow of feeling so fundamentally different from everyone around you. You look at people you used to share everything with, and you realize the bridge is gone. And that brings a very real, very honest question to the surface. Is it even possible to find my grounding again? Can I ever find new, genuine friendships on this new path? Or am I destined to be an outsider forever? When you are in the thick of this transition, it honestly feels like you will never belong anywhere again. And that is a terrifying place to be. For a long time I thought I needed to find my way back, but I felt panic to reconnect with the old. I didn't want to go back. And that's because the truth is we are never meant to return to an older version of ourselves. We are meant to keep on growing, to keep evolving. Every stage of life asks something new of us. The old self served its purpose, but growth demands that we let it go so that something truer can emerge. And the answer that heavy question about friendships, yes, it is honestly possible, but it requires a completely different approach. You cannot find new friendships until you have fully found your own grounding first. You have to learn to rest in your own skin, in your own truth, without needing anyone to validate it. One of the biggest changes for me has been this: I no longer need people in the same way. And that doesn't mean I don't value relationships. It simply means that my sense of inner peace no longer depends on their approval or presence. There's a quiet freedom in that, which is difficult to describe. Sometimes people ask whether this path means becoming cold or detached, but I think it's the exact opposite. If anything, I have become more open, more present, and more able to love without trying to hold on. I can love without trying to possess and without making someone else responsible for my happiness. That to me feels like a much deeper and much purer kind of connection. When it comes to the friendships and relationships that faded along the way, I realize it was all about losing the identity that held those relationships together in the first place. That's why they faded away. If the old self no longer feels like you, then the life built around that self can no longer feel like home. In the end, I didn't lose my old life. I simply outgrew an identity that could no longer contain who I was becoming. Sometimes profound inner transformation doesn't just change your life, it changes the person who is living it completely. If you're on this path right now, and if you're feeling this deep sadness or this space of withdrawal between two worlds, I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. By sharing our stories and building a conversation around this subject, we can remind each other that we are not alone in this space. Thank you for listening to Food for Thoughts with Inka, and take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.